Welcome to Looking Forward, and it's Jeff Abramowitz here, your host today. We are here on PhillyCam Radio. It's WPPM LP in Philadelphia. We're also on PhillyCam Television Live today. Really excited to be here. We have a great show for you. And I have to tell you that so a few things before we even jump in is that we're live streaming today on Xfinity 66 and channel 966. We're on Vios TV 29 and 30. We're on Roku, Apple TV, and YouTube. You can find us everywhere. And I'm really I'm thrilled to be here. Jeff Abramowitz, this is our third year of the show. We recently went to television as of March, the beginning of March. So it's about our fifth or sixth time. We're starting to get it down. We're starting to figure it all out. And today we're talking courtroom justice. So we have some great guests with us today. We're talking a little bit from all angles. So we're starting off with a good friend, Lou Narvaez is here today. And Lou is Eastern Regional Director of Parole Field Services. I give him a new title. I just realized recently that I've been calling him all different positions in the Department of Corrections, and now I finally got it down pat. Eastern Regional Director of Parole Field Services. We're going to be honored, and we're graced with Honorable Stephanie Sawyer, a judge in Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas, going to be here today. A good friend, Cindy Zeitem, is going to be here, and her friend Eugene going to be talking about our reentry program in the federal level in Star Court, and we're going to be wrapping it all up with Craig Levin, a defense lawyer, and we're really excited about everybody going to be sharing some great information. I wanted to start today off before we get to Mr. Narvaez and talk a little about probation and parole, just with a few things. Number one is the city of Philadelphia over the last few weeks, I believe it's about 2 weeks now, has launched a program that's giving anyone that's been in the county prison system. So anyone that was on state road within the last year, from March until March, and you came home, you're entitled to $500. $500. Now, it's not a huge amount of money, but $500 buys some food and can pay some rent and do some good things. So if you need some help, I'll give you some more information on it. But the applications are still available, and it's downloaded into your bank account. It's really simple to do. We'll walk you through it. Our team at Looking Forward will help you as well. So we're hoping that you'll jump in on that. So that's the first thing. The second thing was that we had some data just came out recently, and really challenging data, and kind of took me back a long ways. The first was, it was published by the Pew Trust, actually issues an annual report, and the report gave some statistics of what's going on here in our city and around the country. And tragically, we know that in 2020, the homicide rate in our city was just through the roof. We had 499 homicides in our city. And I'm curious if we'll be asking a few of our guests today if they know who the other cities are, because we're number 4 in the country for the most homicides. I'm curious if anybody knows who the other ones are at the top of that ladder. But even worse than that, our shootings in and throughout Philadelphia have skyrocketed. Last year, we had over 2,246 shootings in our city, and that's up from with all of that being said, our prison population went down. We were down to 4,200 men and women inside of our prisons on state road at the county level last. And really excited about the rest of the show. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come right back with Lou Narvaez is going to be joining us in 1 second. So we are back and Looking Forward, and we're blessed with having Lou Narvaez on our show again. How are you, Mr. Narvaez?
Hey, Jeff, I'm fine, and thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
So you've been one of the constants on our show for the last few years. You've gone through snowstorms, pandemics, and the whole 9 yards. And matter of fact, they should know that you're actually at the PhillyCam studios. Most of us are working remotely, but you've been traveling down to the studio to participate. So thank you so much for spending some time with us and going out of your way to share a little bit of what's going on. So I guess I want to start with a little bit of update, like how we doing? We've been battling the pandemic, and I'm curious if you could shed a little bit of light what's going on at the DOC.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. Well, the DOC has resumed the vaccination of all the inmates and the staff. We had the momentarily stoppage of that process based on the fact that there were questions and concerns regarding the Johnson vaccine. But once we became cleared to proceed, Secretary Wetzel had everyone proceed with the vaccinations across the states and the state correctional institutions. And what they're also doing, they're being very transparent in the DOC side of the house. They're having dialogue with the inmates. They go on the tiers, they discuss, they send out information because, as you know, information is power. They try to alleviate some of the fears and apprehensions people have about the vaccine, in addition to just giving them information so they know what's going on and why there have been certain modifications put in place as to their daily routine. So that's going on the custody side of the house. On the field services side of the house, we continue to assess our practices and protocols, not only as it relates to COVID, but caseload management and supervision. We look at ways to enhance how we're dealing with our population base, what tools in the bag we can pull out that be most effective, yet not stifle the individual as they too work through the process of COVID and supervision.
So one of the things that we've been talking about, and you and I've been talking about, not only on the show, but the outside of the show, was the reality that so many men and women are incarcerated today because of technical violations. And I was wondering, maybe share a little bit, when you go through the criminal justice system, you go to that sentencing, and then you go and you do some time. You get out from behind the walls and you're trying to figure life out. And all of a sudden, there's a whole set of new rules you got to play by. There's a set of rules inside the prison, set of rules outside the prison. And I'm curious, what's your take on what's happening as far as us putting more people inside of the wall, inside of prison because of technical violations, or should we having a different attitude towards all of it?
First of all, we have refocused our lens as far as the technical violations or violations in general. The violation aspect is the last thing that we do in the supervision mode. We have graduated sanctions that we impose. That's number one. Number two, what happens is this is not something that's surprising to a person when they're violated for technical, because there are various types of technicals. A technical would be that you incurred a new arrest, not a conviction, but an arrest. A technical may be that you're violating the board condition of being involved in some type of treatment. So what happens is the agent will bring you in. The agent will have dialogue with you. The agent will give you a warning that you're not complying. So there are steps that are taken. We may put you on GPS. Part of the misconception with a lot of people, and not just with parole, but county probation as well, is people think that we come out of the bag violating people. No, that's not what we do. The other part of this is that we are following orders. If it's a probation order, he's following the order of the court. They have to, they're officers of the court. We're more from the executive branch. The board may impose a condition. For public safety reasons, we cannot just arbitrarily overlook a condition that's imposed on a person. However, what we can do is work with them and offer them various resources to try to comply with the condition imposed. Now, if we exhaust all possible avenues and you're gaining compliance, then it is what it is. But my agents are very clear that I let them know no one is violated on a first offense because I came in, I gave a hot urine. Well, if you're an addict, you're not going to stop drugs just by virtue of walking through a probation district or parole district office. You're going to have to be worked with. So these are things that we look at, and we use graduated sanctions in looking at that.
How close do parole officers work with the court system, work with the judges?
Well, we have special probation cases. And in those cases, what happens, and we may be supervising as of this date, 1,700 special probation for Philadelphia specifically. In those particular cases, the court receives paperwork that they send to the to Harrisburg central office requesting that we supervise an individual. So we will supervise, and we will supervise that individual based on the conditions imposed by that particular court, and also based on any conditions that we may find that is necessary that we dialogue with the court about. So we do have a good partnership. I'm a member of CJAB, which is the Criminal Justice Advisory Board. I have worked closely with Judge Tucker. I know he's no longer in the position of supervising judge for criminal, but I have worked very closely with him. The new presiding judge, I have had dialogue with her as well. And I apologize in advance. I believe her name is Sheridan-Harris. I've worked very close with her as well. We're about partnerships. We're about engaging. But one of the things I like to share, Jeff, if I can, when you talk about courtroom justice, whether it's a violation or just going to trial, it has had a certain meaning to people, especially people of color, because when you look at the 14th Amendment, it talks about due process. It talks about not being deprived of life, liberty, or property, and it talks about equal protection. Many of the voices you hear in the community today is about equal protection. People are talking about wanting to have equity in how they're treated. When you talk about courtroom justice, you talk about the Sixth Amendment. People are looking to being able to have their day in court. Unfortunately, what has happened because of the volume of cases and backlogs in the courts throughout the country, you get negotiated pleas. And I'm not saying, unfortunately, from a negative perspective, but from a civilian perspective, citizens are saying, well, what happened to my right to a criminal defendant, or a defense attorney, my right to a public trial without unnecessary delay, my right to impartial jury. People are basically looking for that type of justice, and they're getting the majority of cases played out. So imagine you're the victim on the victim end, and you're trying to figure this all out now. And it's an interesting read, and I won't belabor the point, because that wasn't part of our system initially. It started after the Civil War. That wasn't initially plea bargaining what we did, but that's what people look for. They look for their day in court. And to the layperson, the court can be a very intimidating place, whether it's for a VOP or whether it's for a trial or a jury. And at the end of the day, what do they want? Justice. Whether I'm being violated for parole, whether I'm having a revocation hearing for parole, violated for probation, coming to a sentence, that's what they're looking for. And in many cases, they walk away confused and not understanding the process.
Yeah, so I think that's all part of it. There's so many. I do believe that things happen for a reason, and that oftentimes people find themselves in court because the choices, and other times they don't, and other times they go back in again and again until they learn the lessons that that they're supposed to, that'll get them right. I'll be honest with you, I'll mention this. I don't know, but for the fact that I did some time away, that I'd actually be on this earth. So I think that there's a lot to be learned from our justice system, but I also think there's a lot of education that has to happen. So, Mr. Narvaez, you've always been on here. You've been educating us and breaking down some of the barriers that we have with probation and parole in our community. So we appreciate you so much, and really appreciate you being on today and taking some time.
And I appreciate you, and thank you very much for allowing me this platform to try to educate not just our population we service, but people in general that call us asking us questions about the system. Thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to be right back, and our next guest is the Honorable Judge Stephanie Sawyer, and Judge Sawyer is going to be telling us a little bit about her journey on the bench and the work she's doing in her courtroom. So we'll be right back. You're listening to Looking Forward. We are back, and we are with the Honorable Judge Stephanie Sawyer. Judge, how are you?
I'm terrific. How are you? Can't complain. Still breathing, right?
There you go, judges. I'm so glad to see you, and I'm glad you agreed to come on the show today. I
Sure.
have to tell you that the first time that I met you was in your chambers, and we had some discussions doing some work through the Looking Forward program. And you called me in and you said, "What can you do for my people, and how can you keep them out of my courtroom?" I said, "Let's talk about it." So thank you so much for being here. First, so tell us a little about Judge Sawyer. What should we
Well,
know?
well, I mean, there's a lot to know, but we're trying to get it all into 15 minutes. So I'm going to stick to more of what my mission is about, and less about me. I've been on the bench for a while, about 6 years now. But one of the major, I don't know if it's a pet peeve, but issues that I have is the fact that in the general model, when people come to court, unless it's a diversion program like ARD, or drug court, or veterans court, or a treatment court, or a specific plan that is a diversion program, the general model is that judges really only see people when it's time to punish them. They punish, they hear the case, and if they're convicted, they sentence them. And then they release them to, if they're on probation, to the probation officer, or if they do some time in custody, then they will eventually be released to the parole officer. And then, the judge doesn't see them again until the probation officer or the parole officer, whomever is applicable, gets so frustrated that they opine revocation, or if the person catches a new case, and either there's a detainer that they asking you to consider lifting, or they catch a new case and get convicted, and then they're there for a direct violation. And in those three instances, a judge only really sees somebody to punish them. So my question always was, well, when do you actually get to help folks if you only see them to punish them? And so we do things a little bit more differently in my courtroom. What I do is I have my interns that are in a constant vetting process, trying to find nonprofit organizations and other programs. That's how I ran across you. In fact, with Looking Forward, trying to work with us in a partnership, so that I can hold everybody accountable. I can hold the program accountable. Some folks that are not used to being treated right, they show up in a program and tell them to sit down and be quiet and not treated with respect. They're not coming back. They're not looking at that as an opportunity. So the programs have to be responsive in the same fashion, understanding their demographic, as well as the defendants have to be responsive to go and give their best effort and not BS folks. And so that's what we do in our courtroom. Anybody that I sentence, and there is a underlying reason, if you got a 7th or 8th grade education and 3 possession with intent to deliver, you're only going to get your 4th or 5th if somebody doesn't help you out with your education. And so that's what we do. We try to address the problem. If we have a drug addict, we try to make sure they address that, or mental health issues, they address that. If it's opportunity issue, we try to address that. But we hold them accountable for the resource that we give them in subsequent statuses, and we don't wait for a bad situation to check on folks under our supervision.
Judge, are you the norm? Judge, are you the norm? Are you the norm or the anomaly? I've been in your courtroom. I see the work that you do, and I've also been in a lot of other courtrooms in our county. And I'm curious, how can we get other judges to think like you do? Because I think it goes a long way.
Well, look, I'm not here to denigrate anybody else's point of view. I will be completely honest and frank with you and say that I am in a vast minority, and it is of concern. But again, some folks have a different perspective on how to move things forward, or I'll say this. Let me say this. It is always my endeavor to work with other judges and to help them if they wish to move forward in the fashion that I move forward. It is my hope ultimately that people understand that judges are elected. It is my hope that people will ultimately understand, that the mayor or the president doesn't have near the power that a judge has over you in the instant in which you stand in front of them. And so it is my hope the powers that are bestowed on me as a Court of Common Pleas judge, everybody has to make the interpretations of the best way to utilize that authority. And so I would encourage folks to look into making sure that the people in these seats are of the like mind that you are in terms of helping folks.
So, Judge, I'm curious, like, what goes through your head? Like, so you know my story a little bit. I was sentenced to 5 years by Judge Patrice Tucker, Judge Tucker's husband and wife, and I was I will tell you that, you know, I don't know whether she realized it or not. I mean, no question. My approach is always that I opened the door, I made some bad choices, and I had to deal with whatever consequence was coming down. And I was just curious, like, you know, when you sit up on that bench and you're hearing someone, what goes through your head, and what are you trying to weigh or decide when you find that thing we call justice?
Well, for me I try to find out, you know, what harm would come from, is this a violent person in front of me? That's one of the most important things I'm looking at. Is this a violent person that I would be afraid for myself or for my children to be around unprovoked? Would they, you know, just spark into violence? And the vast majority of folks that are in custody are not that person. Most people, in my experience, are desperate, and desperate people make really stupid decisions. And so I believe it's a judge's responsibility to seek to reduce that desperation, so they can see who just does it because, hey, this is the thrill of it. They enjoy it. They're evil, or they're violent, or something's wrong, you know, in terms of not being safe for society. And I submit that's a small percentage of the folks that I see. I've been in court. I've been presiding over cases now since 2014. And I was a municipal court judge for a year and a half, which is a higher volume. I've been a Court of Common Pleas judge since 2016. And I think I've pretty much seen all that comes in and through the Philadelphia courts. I don't do homicide cases at this point. I'm in the SMART room, and that's because that's the larger net of folks that come through the system is through the SMART room, and then waiver trials and so forth. Again, but those folks in homicide rooms, that's a small percentage of the folks that are being arrested. And so what goes through my mind is one, is this person sincere about needing help? Two, what kind of help can be offered along the lines of their talent? People shouldn't be forced to work for $7 or $8 or $9 or $10 an hour, and people should not. People should be expected to pick up their lives and live, not just to survive and survive from the scraps that they can get from society because they've gotten this felony record. The entrepreneurial shifts should happen. I believe the vast majority of those corner boys that are in my class, in my courtroom, I think the vast majority of them are frustrated entrepreneurs that just don't know how to become entrepreneurs. If we can get them to change their product, they can not only be proud of themselves and have their families proud of them, but they can be members of society, paying taxes and all that good stuff. So I don't believe in throwing folks away. That's what goes across my mind. Is this somebody that's going to hurt the rest of us that we need to keep away from folks? Or is this somebody that just needs some help and direction and a firm hand to make sure that they do what they need to do? And 9 times out of 10, it's the latter, not the former.
Yes. So, Judge, I'm curious too. Like, are there you don't have to give names or anything, but are there people that stick out in your mind that say, "Wow, I really changed the course of someone's life because I get some support"? Any stories that you can say just ring true to you?
Listen, I dozens. There were some dozens. There's several folks that, being a judge, it's kind of like, it reminds me of a League of Their Own with Tom Hanks, where Tom Hanks is going off. There's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in the legal profession. If you're a lawyer, be a lawyer. If you're on the bench, if you're emotional, hold that for the appropriate time. And I've oftentimes felt that lump in my throat where I've had to tell myself, Steph, there's no crying in baseball, Steph. And so that's because I've had lots of folks tell me I was the first person who ever believed in them, or I was the first person that ever cared about them. Philly Auto and Parole is a resource of mine that I used, and there was a program that was on Channel 10. A couple of the guys at Philly Auto and Parole, they were on my probation. One of them that literally in an interview said that I was the first person that asked him, what he liked to do. When I found out the young man liked to be a mechanic, but he wasn't certified, I had a great program. Go to Philly Auto and Parole. He's not only at Philly Auto and Parole and got his certification, but he is now working permanently with Philly Auto and Parole now he's a trainer there. But dozens. There was a young man. Yes. The answer to that is beyond what I could beyond the 15 minutes that you have me on this program.
Judge, I'm curious too. Like, you see so many people in your courtroom, and I've been in the courtroom. There's always hopping, always stuff going on. But I'm curious, like, is there an underlying theme that you see over and over again with young people going through your courtroom that is maybe the biggest challenge that young people face?
Yes, and there's nothing to do about it except accept history. And in accepting history, you have to accept the explosion of the war on drugs in the 90s, and you have to in the 90s, when this crack epidemic hit, it was some sort of defect in the folks that were using it. Now that we have the opioids situation, it's a little different of a look. It's a little different a reaction. From the system, if you will. In the 90s and the 2000s, there was a reaction of mass incarceration that no one has ever seen before. And parents and dozens and thousands and millions of parents were jailed, and children grew up on the street without guidance, without parents, without direction, without motivation, just without. And we're paying for it now. And we need to realize that these kids need help.
So, Judge, if there was one shout out that you would give, or one thing that you would ask for from the people that come in front of you, what they should really know, besides the fact that you don't put up with much bull. If you come in front of you, you want to know that they're working hard to try and get where they need to be. And you hold them accountable, and you hold me accountable. I mean, you called me a number of times, and
yes,
hey, what's going on with this guy? And and you know what? It keeps us all accountable, and that's what really needs to happen. Just like we hold Mr. Narvaez accountable for things that happen with probation and parole, and we hold our judges accountable as well. But the men and women that come in front of you, are really, sometimes they're really struggling. And to have that compassion and that ear. And I've seen more than once where you bring a young man back and have a private conversation with them about what they need to do, and try and guide them, especially with your support staff, which it seems like you have a never-ending supply of. Just in closing, I'm curious, if you had one word you want to talk to let the people know. We talked and gave you statistics earlier on the show about gun violence today. And I'm curious if for the people that are out there that are holding guns, that are committing crimes today, what would the message be from the bench?
That's a tough question. If you were to ask a different type of judge, they might give you this stern, put them down kind of a conversation. But instead, you're getting it from me. And for me, with the rapid influx of gun violence, you have people trying to survive. And there has to be a thought process that I'm sure is pervasive is I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. The more guns that there are, either you're going to lock yourself in the basement. If you're in that elk, if you will, you'd be harebrained not to protect yourself. So what I would say to them is people, places, and things. Take a look in the mirror. Decide what kind of life that you want. And then you have to deal with people, places, and things that will help you get there. Because unfortunately, if you keep doing what you're doing, if folks that are in that culture right now, they have to wear a gun or kill or be killed is a lot of what goes on the street. And let's be honest with ourselves about what it is. It's lack of opportunity. It's lack of education. It's lack of motivations. All of the things that I said before. So there is no easy fix to this gun violence. I do believe that that there's been a hoopla back and forth about a possible gun court. And yes, I would think that would make some sense. And yes, it's something that if ever asked, I would involve myself in, because there is not any one answer to it. There is a convoluted set of answers to it, with people, places, and things. But just to be back to your question, for those in that, the question starts and begins and ends with them. I'm going to tell you what I tell everybody that's on this, that comes in my courtroom. Yes, you will have to do this, this, and this to toe the line to get through my probation. But I realize I can't make anybody do anything. I can make them sorry if they don't, but I can't make folks do it. And so it begins and ends with a decision in between your two ears. If I have somebody that walks into my courtroom has made a decision between their two ears that they're not going to do this two-step in and out of court, then I can help them not do that. If they haven't yet made that decision, then I got to put them where they asked me to put them. But at the same time, I would just simply say it begins and ends with self. When you make a decision of the direction in which you want to go, then reach for the help that you need.
Awesome. Judge Steuer, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for being a guest today. And we wish you all the best on the bench and all the good work you're doing, especially with helping the men and women that come in front of you. So you're listening to Looking Forward, and we're going to be right back with Cindy Zeidema from the federal court.
Thank you for having me.
Back and welcome to Looking Forward. So I told you before, we had a great show. It's like, buckle up. I like listening to the judge. I'm like afraid. I'm like looking around, like, where's our court officer? So we're here with Cindy Zeidema. Cindy, how are you?
Hi, Jeff. I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. It's great to have you. And we had, so we've known each other for a few years, and in the time that we've known you, there are a handful of people that I know that I could ever go to when I needed an honest answer about the federal system and the way it worked, and maybe questions about process and things that happen. And you've always been one of them, and I consider you a friend. But thank you so much. So Cindy is the reentry coordinator for the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. I got that title right?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. And you've been doing some amazing work that I think goes so under the radar screen of the general public. And it's really why I wanted to have you on today, because I know I've worked with two judges that you work with, in Judge Rice and Judge Restrepo. But I was wondering if you could tell the public and people that are listening about the work the federal court's doing with men and women as they come home.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff. So we actually have 3 problem-solving courts in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. One is supervision to aid reentry, the STAR program, which was started in 2007, launched by Judge Rice, who was a visionary ahead of his time, and my predecessor, Maureen Barden, first reentry coordinator at the U.S. Attorney's Office. So we've been doing this for a long time, and STAR has 2 courts, one under Judge Rice and one under Judge Restrepo. So it's grown over time. Additionally, we also have a relapse prevention court, which was launched in 2018, and the Strides Court, which is essentially a mental health court. And so these 3 courts are designed to support individuals returning home from federal prison and to meet the specific needs and goals of those individuals as they're transitioning home.
So tell us a little bit, how does it work? I was away for 5 years. I came home and no one called me and said, hey, Jeff, we got this great program for you. So how does it work when you come home? How do they get into the program? And then what's the program all about? What does it do?
Yeah, so I'll just focus on the STAR program, Supervision to Aid Reentry. So an individual gets released from federal prison, so they have to serve their time. They go to the halfway house. And once they're about to be released from the halfway house, they complete something called the post-conviction risk assessment. And folks need to identify as moderate to moderate high on that scale. And if they meet that risk level, then they're invited to come observe reentry court. We have a separate process for the STRIDES program and for relapse prevention court. Those two programs are focused on recovery, wellness, and stability. And so we have different scales for that. And probation administers that risk assessment score. We then invite individuals to come observe court. So this is a voluntary program, and I think that's really important to note. We invite them to come observe. And then throughout the program, if they decide to sign up, they need to accrue 52 weeks of credit. And once they complete the program, once they accrue those 52 weeks, they get a year off of their supervised release, or they're eligible for a year off of their supervised release.
Yeah, I needed that. I needed that. A year. Oh my gosh. So how intense is the program?
Well, it's very intense. So you do have to report before the judge every other week. You need to chat with the judge about your progress in reentry, what you've been doing over the past 2 weeks. And, in addition to that judicial oversight, the monitoring, the intensive supervision, we provide folks with a lot of different resources, which I can talk a little bit about. The program also has a system of sanctions and rewards that are in place. So this isn't just an easy year off. Folks really have to adhere to the terms of their supervised release. It is really, I know Judge Sawyer was talking about accountability. It is really based on accountability. It's, not an easy peasy thing. So the system of sanctions and rewards can range from a pause on credit, accrual of credit, all the way up to a custodial sanction of 7 days. We can have rewards as well that include extra weeks of credit toward the completion of the program.
So I have to tell you that if you told me that I needed to go in front of a judge every few weeks when I came home, I'd say, you are crazy. But I will tell you, when I went, and I actually had the chance to observe the court before, and both Judge Rice and Judge Restrepo, and it's not what you think. So first of all, they're not actually on the bench when you meet with them. I was amazed at it. They're actually the one that I participated in. They were sitting down at a table, and they were just sitting and asking questions. And they had this discussion about, how you doing? And, work's not going so well. What's going on with that? And they really had like this one-on-one time that showed such humanity. And it was incredible because I never really saw that in front of a judge, that was with direct contact. Like all I saw was my sentencing judge, and we never really had that kind of connection. But this judge really, both Judge Rice and Restrepo. But there was something else that struck me, was that we were in a meeting that I was allowed to sit in on, and there must have been 25 people in the room, all sitting around a table. And it was everyone from the parole officer to actually students in colleges and all these different people, law students, and they're all talking like they knew this person so well by looking at their file and working with them. And I was wondering, is that with every participant you guys have, that you get to know them that well, that you can kind of help them navigate?
Yeah. So that's what's very special about this program is we have a community of people who work together, and prior to each court session, there's a team of us that meets, and that includes the judge who oversees the program, probation officer who supervises the individuals in the program, an assistant United States attorney, a federal public defender, and we have, as you said, a large community of folks who are there, and their role is designed to support individuals. So we discuss each individualized case. We get a report from the probation officer. All of this the meetings are confidential. And then, the judge has a heads up prior to going into the court session about what each individual needs and,
awesome.
And the progress that they've made in the program. And then during court, we actually are able to meet one-on-one with the individuals and get them connected to resources right then and there.
So I want to bring in one of your rock stars, and Eugene, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. And you
Good, good. So welcome
Hi, Mr.
aboard.
Griffin.
So I told Cindy that if she had somebody that she thought was a success story or somebody did some amazing stuff, that she said, this is the person we got to talk to. So welcome to the show. So tell us a little about Eugene.
Well, Eugene was a simple guy who just wanted a chance in life like any other normal human being would want. That took some wrong turns in the beginning, and I flowered out to be who I am today. Thank God, and the help of the STAR program and, the judges, like you were saying, like you never really see be in those type of atmosphere with those caliber of people, as some people would say, that have this type of these titles and recognition. They're not our everyday people. They're not our social group so much as to say, and dealing with the people in the STARS program and like she said, the DA and the judges and the parole and probation and like they said, the Temple law students and all that, it made a big difference in my being who I am today, versus who I was in the beginning as a person,
So tell me, the first time you went into court, that very first time, were you a little scared?
Jeff, you already know I was like, what the? I'm not going nowhere. Go where? In front of the judge? Because where I come from, that's like, go to the judge, in front of the judge every day, for every week for what? Every other week. Like, nah, I ain't doing that. That's too much. Y'all talking about y'all got DAs in here and all this. Nobody want to be where I come from. Don't nobody want to be in that type of environment. They look at that as like a hostile environment. Like, what, they going to send me to jail all over again? But it turned out to be, like you said, a heck of an experience. It was lovely. It was warming. They made you feel welcome. They made you actually feel comfortable, like to an extent that you wouldn't believe. Because, normally you just feel, I'm in the courtroom. I'm ready to go to jail. I'm ready to pack my toothbrush and socks. Keep it going.
So tell us a little about the program. What was your experience like?
Man, I had a lot of experience with the program that was just amazing. It really blew me. Like I say, some of the benefits of the program, even till this day, I'm out of reentry. I'm done with reentry. I'm a complete graduate.
Congratulations. Awesome.
And I'm still benefiting from the program. As of almost like last week sometime, I just was dealing with the people from Temple and, helping me with some legal things and, and resources towards bettering my situation and life and helping my family and things of that nature.
So give me a little bit, like how when you came home, did you have a hard time getting a job?
No, not really.
Okay.
As they say, I was different. I was a different case. When I came home, before I even found that I couldn't leave the state of Pennsylvania, I was already working in New Jersey. Before I even met my parole officer, I had 2 jobs.
Wow.
And one of them was in New Jersey, and one of them was here in Philadelphia. So they were kind of astonished with that. But he was upset at first, like, "You've been leaving the state, like that's violating your probation." I'm like, "Man, I ain't from here. I'm not from Philly. Like, I'm from Baltimore. I migrated here with a group of guys and family that I knew and people and that were determined to see me succeed in life and not keep going back and forth in and out the courts, as the judge was saying. I ain't want to be one of them in and out the court type guys, because, like she said, if you don't want to get right, she gonna get you right."
Really true. Really true.
Reentry helped me so much. Like, reentry put me straight where I needed to be. All they needed to know was what it was that I was trying to do, what it was that I was looking to gain, what it was that I had planned in life, as far as goals, short term and long term. What type of all they wanted to know is what it is that you were looking to get out of what you consider to be you being successful, and they helped me do it all.
Wait,
Go ahead, say it again, Jeff.
No, we have so many people that go through our system, and I'm curious, like, if you had some advice for them, what would you tell them? It may not be necessarily StarCorp, but what kind of guidance would you give the men and women that maybe have walked in your shoes that are coming home now?
I tell them be more open. Be more open. Be more considerate that people aren't perfect. None of us are, and we all have our shortcomings. Who's to put it on the scale to say what's heavier and what's lighter, just because it's based that this was this type of crime and this is that type of crime. But you never know what was heavier on the scale based upon the situation or the things occurring. Just give them a chance, open it up to these people, and allow them to help you. Allow to take the help, to take the advantage of the opportunities that may befall you even afterwards, because sometimes the effect of what you learn and what you get from reentry, sometimes things didn't come till later in life, where now I'm contracted for a company that these people tied me into, and I have an opportunity to make any abundance of money that I really want to, as long as I keep applying myself and just being the guy that I know I could be, versus, so like I say, reentry, man, was wonderful. And
Awesome.
It was very beneficial. I would tell them, give it a shot. Give it a shot. I would tell them, it's wonderful. Give it a shot.
So I'm going to tell you, we run on kind of adjacent highways, because, my return was kind of the same way. Look, I took all the lessons I learned and took all those lemons and made a whole bunch of lemonade out of them. And it sounds like you did the same. So congratulations, buddy. Appreciate it. Cindy, if we wanted to get more information on StarCorp, Reentry Corp, how can we go about getting information on this great program?
You can certainly reach out to me directly. I'm the point of contact for outreach, and I coordinate a lot of our community partnerships and initiatives. We love to partner with employers. We just recently launched a new housing program, and we're looking to partner with landlords. We offer so many different resources. There's not enough time for me to go into everything that we offer here on this show today. But if you'd like to learn more about the program, whether if you've been recently released, or if you have a loved one who's about to come out of prison, or you're somebody in the community who wants to give back and volunteer, you can reach out to me directly.
Awesome. Cindy Seidemann, thank you so much. Eugene, thank you for being on the show. Congratulations on coming home, being successful. It sounds like you found that happiness that we all should be finding. So we will be right back into looking forward, and we have one more awesome guest coming up. Craig Levin is going to be on top of the top of the next 15 minutes. So we're right back. Back and welcome to Looking Forward. We still have Eugene on the call. We'll get him out of there. There you go. Craig, how are you?
I'm
thank
good,
you
Jeff.
so
how
much.
Are you?
Good. Thanks for being with us today. And again, Eugene and Cindy do some great stuff at the federal level. And we have an attorney on. And I'm really grateful to, number one, get some perspective from you, but also to talk about your journey as a lawyer and where you're headed or where you'd like to be headed going forward. So Craig Levin, tell us a little bit about you and where you're from, and tell us about the practice and what you were doing.
I'm a lifelong Philadelphian. I grew up in West Oak Lane, and later on moved to the Northeast when my parents got divorced. Went to Temple University. I've had my law practice for 33 years in Center City. I have a small firm. So basically, I handle all types of matters: civil matters, criminal matters, family court matters, register wills, and estate matters, orphan court matters. And I've been doing it, basically solving problems for everyday Philadelphians for 33 years. At this point in my career, I'm running for judge of the Court of Common Pleas, which is the trial court. And I want to go there because I think I can make a difference. I ran for judge in 2019, and I really learned, because the citizens of Philadelphia really make you be educated on the issues that affect them. And obviously you and I have known each other for a while, but one of the biggest issues, really probably 99% of what people are interested in, is criminal justice reform. So I think I could bring that perspective to the bench.
Well, so first of all, let's back up a little bit. So we go back a ways. I grew up, I know your wife really well. And that's how we kind of got connected. The first time I saw you, though, and met you, was at an event that was being run by Community Forgiveness and Restoration. And I was a board member there. And you were there, and it was a Saturday morning. And I was like, seriously? What's this guy doing? Like, these guys, all these people in the room, they've already been convicted. They're already home. They don't need a lawyer right now. You know, what's going on? But you spent the entire day talking to people that were there. And so tell me a little about your philosophy on working with men and women that are justice involved.
By the way, the first time I went there, I fell in love with that program. I fell in love with Penny McDonald, who's just an amazing human being. Anybody who knows her, I still feel one day they're going to do a movie about her. But just seeing the difference that it made in people's lives, it just really hit home for me. I've always been, my mom always enforced community service. When my kids were growing up, I coached all their teams and I mentored young men. I coached ice hockey at the high school level for the last 7 years. And I saw what a difference I made in young people's lives when you mentor them, you encourage them, you give them confidence, because a lot of kids, you're growing up, you don't have that confidence in yourself yet. And I saw what a difference it made there. And when I saw how that translated into, when you're dealing with formerly incarcerated citizens, it was an amazing experience. And now I'm on the board as well. They asked me, after volunteering, they asked me to join the board, which I was more than happy to do. It's a great program. And I was listening to Judge Sawyer talk about some of the issues, and she was talking about Philly Auto and Parole. I actually sat down and met with Jermaine Womack, who runs that program. I was up in the 51st Ward for an event, and he brought me in and he showed me what he did. And there's just so many good people in our city making a difference in people's lives. And you heard it from Eugene, and you saw what I see is when people respond to kindness and caring. And that's what I saw when I went out to Community Forgiveness and Restoration.
Yeah, so Jermaine's a good friend, and Philadelphia Auto Parole, I'm giving him a big shout out because I've been up there, and I when I was away, I learned how to worked in a garage and learned how to change brakes and oil and all that good stuff on cars. And I was like, yeah, suit me up, give me a suit. I want to start doing some stuff, break down some brakes for you or whatever. And great program. It's out in West Philadelphia. So I'm curious. There's a question. We'll give you a little quiz. We know Philadelphia, the homicide rate, Philadelphia is now the 4th in the country, which is just terrible. Who are the 3 that are above us? Any idea?
Well, it's funny because I heard that earlier in the show, and I Googled it, and whatever I pulled up, it showed that we were 24th, but it was looking at St. Louis, Baltimore, Detroit, New Orleans, Birmingham, Jackson, Mississippi, Baton Rouge. They were some of the cities that are also going through this scourge of gun violence.
Yeah, so those may be more current. These were from the Pew Trust report that came out recently, and the homicide rate for 2020, Baltimore was number 1 with the highest rate of homicides in the country. The next was Detroit, and then Cleveland, and we were number 4. Incredible. As a judge, what perspective are you going to be bringing to the bench, or would you want to see when we talk about gun violence and dealing with men and women that are caught in a circle of using guns and creating some real damage?
I mean, one of the reasons I always stayed, besides my practice, which is with everyday Philadelphians, one of the reasons I really got involved in community service and providing free legal services is so you stay connected with the community and you understand the issues that are affecting them, and you have the ability to relate to them. so that when somebody comes before you, you could determine whether did they just have a bad day or are they a bad person? Are they a threat to society? One of the things the judge, it's an amazing responsibility the judge has, but you have to determine, do you need to protect society from this person? Or is this somebody, as Judge Sawyer was talking about, they just need some kindness and caring, and they need some mentoring, and they need a second chance. People make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, is that something that's going to continue, or do you have the ability to change that? And I know so many judges like Judge Sawyer take the time to really care about individuals. And I wanted to send a message to Judge Sawyer and let her know that the new judges that are coming on the bench, especially I ran in 2019, and any judge that's coming on the bench now, we are schooled by the citizens of Philadelphia. They hold us accountable. We need to know the issues. So the new breed of judges aren't like the old breed of judges. We're going to be judges that understand the issues of mass incarceration and reentry and rehabilitation and restorative justice. We understand that because the citizens make us. Every time we go to a meeting, the questions they want to know about are those issues.
Yeah, so first of all, I'll take issue with a little bit that I don't believe that they're mistakes. I think people make choices, and we don't often think, sometimes they're not very wise choices, but they make choices and they got to learn from them. So I agree that there's a side to it that a role that the judge plays. But I also think that a lot, especially with the drug issues that come up, that a lot of times we're branding people as felons when they really need help. They really need, to get some counseling and support. And there really is a dire need for support services in Philadelphia that can aggressively help men and women deal with those challenges as they go through our justice systems. I'm just curious, is there a philosophy that you have that you hope to bring with you when you talk about doing justice? Like, is there an overarching theme that you see in the city that you like to say, wow, this is my mantra. This is what I want to go with?
Well, I mean, just take, for example, we were talking about with drugs. Drugs is an illness. It's an addiction. People fight so hard against that and really need a lot of help to overcome that. So I think as a judge, if you understand that going in, you make sure that they get the proper programs, the proper help, and that you view whatever they did through those lenses. But you have to have the ability to understand where they came from, what brought them to that point in their life. And these are things that some judges, maybe the old breed of judges, who've been sitting for a long time, don't take the time to do that. But that's something I really care about people. And I think at the heart of any judge, you have to have that empathy and that ability to care for another human being and not just look at them as another number on the list. So yeah. I think that's the perspective I'm going to bring to the bench. And when you have the opportunity to give somebody a second chance and it's safe to do so, I think you're obligated to do so.
As a lawyer, having those glasses, did you do much defense work when you practiced?
I did, and I picked up a lot more in recent years to really, because I know if I'm elected as a judge, I could be in family court or criminal court or civil court. I've had a very successful career, especially on the civil side, and I really wanted to educate myself on the criminal side, which I've done over the last few years.
Awesome. So you got a shot now. We'll give you a space. You want to get out the vote in Philadelphia. And what are you going to say to the people of Philadelphia, to your message to them? Say, hey, I'm worthy of your vote as a judge.
Well, I think there's a couple components to what I feel makes a good judge. One, trial experience. I've been trying cases since 1988. I've handled in excess of 2,000 cases. I can't even count how many cases have I had. I'm very comfortable in the courtroom. A judge has to be decisive, and you have to know when to make a decision, even the hard decisions. And I've always been able to do that because a lot of times I have clients and I have to, maybe their case isn't as strong as they think it is, and I have to be honest with them. And I think that's really important. But in addition to the trial experience, you have to be able to, like I said earlier, you have to be able to relate to an everyday Philadelphian. You can't be up in an ivory tower and not understand the issues that people are going through every day. And that's why I'm always out in the community. That's why I'm always doing free legal work. That's why I volunteered at a reentry program, because that really educates me. I just met with a group of Cambodians that are immigrants, and just to understand the issues that they face, being recent immigrants into the city. I had lunch with a couple young men the other day, and I always want to educate myself so I can understand things better. So I think really what I bring to the bench is you're going to get that trial experience. You're going to get that ability to handle the rules of evidence, which is crucial to a judge, but you also get the ability to relate to an everyday Philadelphian and understand what you're doing.
And hopefully an Eagles fan as well. So
I love the Eagles.
We're gonna close it out there. But you've been with us. Looking forward. We're grateful to have all of our guests: Judge Sawyer, Lou Narvaez, Cindy Zeidema, and in particular Eugene, for your success. We're going to be back in a few weeks with another episode of Looking Forward. And thank you so much for joining us. Craig, good luck.